Hey everybody, how are you? So I've got to talk about something that happened in the House of Representatives the other week. I've been tracking some of the crazy things on the MAGA right for a while now, and keep having these moments where they do something that is just so shameless, and it shocks me so bad that I don't even know what the hell to say. And every time I keep telling myself, Vic, you can't be letting yourself get surprised anymore. You know what the game is. You've seen this 100 times. You have no right to be surprised. Damn if it doesn't get me every freaking time. Bear with me, people, because on the one hand, I am trying to provide you with some information about something that I think is important and that I think you should know about, but I'm also kind of just venting right now a little bit, to be honest. This is actually pretty therapeutic for me, because when I say it out loud, when I lay out the evidence, it makes me feel a little bit less like I've lost my damn mind when one of these things happens. So, thanks, really. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that there was some big kerfuffle in Congress the other week about Hunter Biden showing up unannounced to testify. So Hunter's foibles have been among the chief talking points on the MAGA right for a while now. And I plan actually to do a full examination of everything involving Hunter, the laptop, Ukraine, Burisma, etc. right after I'm done with my videos on voting and January 6th. But I had to remark on this one hearing, if you could call it that occurred the other day. You're going to need a little bit of background to understand what was going on here. So Joe Biden's son Hunter, he's in quite a little bit of legal hot water in regards to unpaid taxes and gun-related charges, which are largely being conflated by the MAGA right with various business activities that Hunter had overseas in Ukraine a few years back, including partially during the time when his father was VP. So Republicans have been trying very hard to make the case that Hunter's work there was in some way corrupt and that Joe Biden profited from this in some way. Aside from Joe Biden himself, Hunter is probably the number one boogeyman for MAGA right now, far surpassing Hillary Clinton and their other favorite punching bags. The House Oversight Committee under James Comer has been particularly aggressive in going after Hunter, making tremendous claims of corruption and bribery and all sorts of other shenanigans. So I know I did mention that I was going to make a full-length video about this later with all the sources and research listed, but even before then I want to make a clear summation of where I stand, at least at this moment. From what I can tell, Hunter Biden is a pretty troubled guy. I'll go into more detail on this at another point, but that family has been through some real tragedy. The stuff that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. As a consequence of that trauma, when he got older, he started engaging in some really unsavory behavior, some of which is absolutely criminal and for which he is being duly prosecuted. Nonetheless, at this point, there's precisely zero evidence of any kind that Joe Biden was actually involved in any of this, nor is there evidence that President Biden profited from those dealings in any way. If you have contrary evidence, by the way, please let me know. Put it in the comments. Trust me, if you've got the smoking gun on the Biden crime family, you're going to be famous. However, before the comment section gets blown up with, but what about the, please be aware, I know about the IRS whistleblowers, I know about the 1023 form, I know about the 17 tapes. I just spent God knows how long deleting all the stupid formatting from the transcript of Devin Archer's testimony so that my e-voice reader could process it so I could listen to the testimony while cooking dinner. Just because someone isn't interested in investing their time in research doesn't give them the right to waste my time or anyone else's with unverified claims from the ass end of the internet. That's not to say that, though, that new evidence won't potentially be found. If something does come to light that shows that Joe Biden was somehow involved in his son's criminal activity, he should be prosecuted accordingly. However, I don't think it's particularly likely that there will be such evidence. The amount of time and resources and media interest that has been poured into this mess, including, let's not forget, an actual criminal prosecution in a court of law, leads me to believe that there just isn't going to be some new bombshell coming out of the blue. I mean, for Christ's sakes, MTG has repeatedly whipped out images of Hunter's dangly bits. How much deeper can they go? Are they going to give him a colonoscopy in public? The MAGA crowd, they don't have a damn thing, and they know it. What happened a few days ago in Congress just made that all the more clear. So backing up a few months ago, Oversight Chair Comer, James Comer, went on a MAGA influencer's podcast, and he said that Hunter could come in and testify, either in public or in a private deposition. There's a video link to that in the description, by the way. So Hunter and his lawyers have been quite public about wanting to testify in public, so that the American people can actually see the whole picture of what's going on and what's being said, rather than being fed out of context snippets from a private deposition. I am all for this. If Hunter's going to admit to some massive cover-up for Joe, I want to see it. I actually want to know the truth. And you'd think that if all of Comer's claims of mountains and mountains of evidence against Joe Biden were true, that Comer and all of his fellow MAGA people would want to put that up front and center, right? But that would be logical, and MAGA does not do logical. So Comer refused to allow Hunter to testify publicly. For some reason, he doesn't want us to see or hear this bombshell evidence. Maybe old Jimmy's got a soft spot for poor Hunter, or maybe he's been corrupted by the deep state. Or maybe, as I see it, he's so utterly full of shit that if he closes his mouth for a second, he'll choke on it. So the other day, Hunter decided to take matters into his own hands and just showed up to Congress. Video to that in the description. What happened next was just... I need a new word for this. I need a new word to describe something that is simultaneously so shocking in its shamelessness, but also completely predictable and expected from the people doing it. It's like a brain mugging. You know what? I'm going to call it magging. Magging is the cognitive dissonance you feel when a MAGA Republican behaves in a way that would be completely beyond the pale for anyone with even the most basic shred of human decency, but at the same time is completely on brand for them. So in this one, I gotta say, the Oscar for most performative fake outrage has got to go to our girl from South Carolina, Nancy Mace. Oh, she magged me good, people. I was genuinely speechless. And if you know me, you know that is not a common thing. It started off bad and just kept getting worse. First, completely out of nowhere, she asks who bribed Hunter to show up at that hearing. Like, what? Who bribed her to show up at the meeting? Why? She's just pulling nonsense out of thin air. But that's nothing, people. The next sentence is what really got me. Out of absolutely nowhere, May starts screaming about Hunter Biden's white privilege being the only reason that he got into that hearing. Leave aside the idiocy that Hunter's presence had anything at all to do with being white. He could have been a freaking fish. His privilege, though more of a burden, I'd say, is being the president's son. That's why he was there. But more than that, isn't one of the central tenets of MAGA ideologies, so much as there is one, that all of that CRT, DEI, white privilege stuff doesn't actually exist? You know, it's just pure, unadulterated cynicism. You say whatever the hell you want in that particular moment that's going to benefit you or that you think is going to benefit you, regardless if it's consistent with logic or principle. It drives me insane. And then she goes on to start screaming that nobody was letting her talk because she's a woman. And then 5 minutes later, they'll go right back to saying that DEI is a communist plot and feminism is turning everyone into pedophiles. But wait, there's more. Mace called Hunter a coward. Well, actually, she said he had no balls, because he wouldn't show up and answer the questions of the committee. And she said this while Hunter was literally sitting right there, in front of her, ready to answer the questions. That was her speaking time. She could have asked whatever the hell she wanted. He was right there in front of her. He showed up in public to answer their questions. But no, Hunter has no balls, right? Leave aside the fact that Mace's 9/11 denying, space laser dodging, Confederate flag waving colleague from Georgia was again providing photographic evidence of Hunter's balls. You know, I swear, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene has a bigger collection of Hunter's nudes than any woman he has ever slept with. Hunter must have some real heavy brass ones to have just held his ass down in that chair and maintain his composure, while Mace used the time she was given for questions and spent it on giving a goddamn audition for Fox News Host of the Year. And still, I've got to give it to them. You know, right when you think that they can't give you any more, MAGA Republicans will always find another heaping helping of shit to dump on your plate. Never say that they are stingy with their scumbaggery. Oh, no. Nancy Mace knew who'd be watching that clip. She knew who she was performing. She had to throw in that little final shimmy and shake so that her master at Mar-a-Lago could finish stroking himself to Fox News clips. Hunter's gotta go to jail! Right now, straight from the floor of Congress! Throw him in the deepest, darkest pit in Gitmo! Oh, look, I like to poke fun at these idiots all the time, and the stuff that they do, it is so ridiculous that it comes off as funny. But they're on the freaking floor of the U.S. Congress. This is the body that ratified the 13th Amendment, that ended slavery, the body that declared war on the greatest evil in the world after Pearl Harbor, the body that gave women the right to vote. The stuff that happens there, it actually matters, and these freaking buffoons are making a mockery of it. And all I can say is at least the crazies don't have the floor to themselves. Thankfully, we've got people of character and intelligence in there as well. In particular, I want to give a shout-out to Rep. Jared Moskowitz, who has been a real hero in these hearings, exposing how fundamentally unserious this farce is. And I've got a video to that in the description. He made the point that if the purpose of all this was to find out the truth from the horse's mouth, why didn't they just ask him any questions? He was right there. Maybe Nancy Mace should have spent her time actually asking questions instead of screaming about completely irrelevant white privilege bullshit. And she wasn't alone. Moskowitz just straight up asked if any of the Republicans had a question for Hunter. What'd he get? Essentially crickets, at least from the Republican side. Almost every Democrat raised their hands to ask Hunter questions. On top of that, Moskowitz was clear that he'd gladly vote to put Hunter's name on a contempt resolution, despite the fact that Hunter did show up and was willing to answer the questions they didn't want to ask. But just one little condition, one little point of order, just a teeny-weeny bit of balancing the scales in favor of reason and objectivity. Because Hunter Biden isn't the only one who refused a subpoena. Several members of Republican leadership, including former Speaker McCarthy and almost Speaker Jim Jordan, didn't think the congressional subpoenas were all that important when they were called up to testify before the January 6th committee. For some reason, they didn't have much to say about their involvement in the treason of that day. And unlike Hunter, not a one of them would dare to go before a public hearing, unannounced or not, to say their piece. So in the spirit of honesty and fairness and transparency, Moskowitz asked that the Republicans who had violated subpoenas would have their names added to the contempt resolution. But of course, the MAGA crowd, in the spirit of not giving a damn about any of that stuff, turned him down. And honestly, I wouldn't be so angry if this was the first time I was seeing something like this. One time it would be almost funny, but the hypocrisy is so blatant, so crystal clear, so obviously devoid of any kind of principle or moral core. You can't make this shit up. I used to write short stories when I was a kid, and I would never think to write a character like Nancy Mace or Jim Comer, because they're just shit characters. It's not just obvious that they're horrible people, it's that they're horrible at being horrible. They're so lazy and obvious. And it's funny, I talk to a lot of MAGA people who see the world as being controlled by these shadowy conspiracist cabals, like there's some big plan and it's so slick, so organized, that George Soros controls everything and nobody even knows it, blah, blah, blah. But then I look at this and I'm like, hold up. The people who actually do want to destroy this wonderful democracy of ours, they're not these master manipulating super geniuses, they're just people. And stupid people at that. It's like someone got together all the stupidest, whiniest, douchiest, attention-hoggingest asshats that we all knew in high school, and then locked them all together in a box for 20 years to stew in their petty grievances and jealousies until the collective pressure of all those egos busted out and somehow landed on the floor of Congress. However, I don't mean to say for a moment that their pettiness takes away from their dangerousness. I think that's kind of why that magging that I was talking about earlier, that sense of surprise at their awfulness despite mentally knowing how awful they are, it's so damn disorienting. It's hard to square the fact that the same clown who can't keep her hands off photos of Hunter Biden's pecker is simultaneously the same person who's instrumental in making sure that Ukraine doesn't get the weapons it needs to fight off Putin's genocidal invasion. Guys, I'm tired of getting magged. I'm tired of having to contort my brain into knots, trying to process and make sense of this madness. This isn't who we are as Americans. We don't have to accept these demeaning lies and hypocrisy. We can make Congress a place where the work of the American people can actually be done again in a serious way, in a way that is actually focused on making our lives better instead of just a Fox News clip show. Vote them all out, people. Vote blue. Till next time.